Okay, so we've got our table still here in part two, and I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit because we already know um, the weight of the blob is equal to F1 plus F2 plus F3 plus F4. We've already gone over that. That's the sum of the forces. And then we have our torques that we did. And they gave us X, X, F, the force of the blob, all right? The weight of the blob is L onto F34, which is just L onto F3 plus F4. And we also had Y. How do I want to write? Which way do I want to do this in? No, I'm going to do L minus X. L minus X onto FB is, from the other side, L onto F1 plus F2. All right, or I skipped a step there from the previous video. So that's one set of torques. That's the torques. That's the torque in the around the z-axis in the xy plane. Okay, and then we have our torque around the x-axis in the yz plane, and that gave us L onto F2 plus F4, and L minus Y FB onto is L onto F1 plus 1 plus F3. Now, here you've got four unknowns, and you've got three equations, and um, um, you have no hope, basically. You have no hope. But we're going to solve this anyway. So I'm going to solve, what I'm going to do is rearrange. I'm going to rearrange so that I've got F12 equals, and I've got F1 plus F2 equals, and F1 plus F3 equals, and we'll begin to find some patterns in what we have. So F1, if I rearrange this, plus F2 is L minus X over L onto FB. And if I go to the next one, F1 plus F3 is, if I could type a little better, is L minus Y over L FB. Okay, cool. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the other equation here, which is in the X F3 plus F4 is X over L FB. And then down here, F2 plus F4 is Y over L FB. Okay, so these are what we have. And here's where things are, you have to start making some other assumptions. Okay, so let's assume F1 can be expressed as some variable A1, L minus X over L. Let me do this. Is some unknown factor, L minus X over L onto FB. And that F2, all right, can also be expressed in a similar way. And I'm going to use A21, since these kind of go together, onto L minus X over L FB. So all I've done is say, you know, whatever F1 is, this factor over here is there. So F1 is some fraction of that. F2 is some fraction of that. And we know if we stick all this back in that, you know, A12 plus A21 has to be equal to 1. All right, because the fraction of it that's F1 plus the fraction that's F2 has to add up to the whole thing. And then if we look at this next equation down here, because I'm going to go jump to that one, and we do something similar. F1, I'm going to say F1 is A13 onto 1 minus y over L minus y, pardon me. L minus y over L. I don't like that. That's ugly. I'm sorry. Math equations have to be pretty. Okay. FB. And F3 is going to be A31. Now, A13, A31, these are just my labels for this, right? L, and I'm just trying to say, okay, L, FB. And again, A13 plus A31 have to add up to 1 because all I've done, pardon me, all I've done is say F1 is some fraction of the total and F3 is some fraction of the total. And the two of them together have to add up to the total. Well, here we already have a clue, right? Here we already have a clue because we've got F1 is something times L minus X over L times FB. And we've got F1 is something times L minus Y over L FB. So what if those somethings were A12 is L minus Y over L, and A13 is L minus X over L? And over here, we have something similar. No, not yet. Sorry, we'll get there, right? And so we can kind of provisionally propose, hey, look at this. We could say, what if A12 is just L minus Y over L? And what if A13 is just L minus X over L? All right, then these two equations are good. Okay, let's stick in another equation. So we have, let's say F3. All right, so we've done what equation? We've done this equation right there, and we've done this equation. So let's go grab F2. So let's say F2 is some A24, right, onto what? Y over L, FB. And F4 is some A42, Y over L, FB. And again, we know A24 plus A42 have to add up to 1. Okay. Well, now look at our two equations in F2. So we have F2 is something times L minus X over L FB. And we have F2 is something times Y over L FB. So let's propose. What if A21 is Y over L and A24 is L minus X over L? Okay, so that would make this term okay, and that would make that term okay. Well, if those are true, right, we already know what the others are. We could work that out, but let's keep going. Let's keep going. And let's do F3. So F3, right? So we're going to say F3 then. We've got one equation for F3. F3 is A31 onto 1 minus Y over LFB. So let's pick this one. That's where we are now. F3 is also A34 onto X over L FB. And from that same equation, F4 is A43 onto X over L, FB. And so, and again, we can't forget that A34 plus A43 equals 1, right? Okay. And so if we look at the coefficients for F3, we have F3 is something times X over L times FB, and we have F3 is something times 1 minus Y over L times FB. And so we could propose, we've got A31 is X over L, and A34 is 1 minus Y over L. And now we've already done everything for F4. I believe we have, for F4, we have this something times Y over L. And down here, something times X over L. Right? So for F3, we get F4, right? F4, A42 would be X over L, and A43 would be Y over L. Okay. All right. So there you go. Now we've kind of proposed a solution here. All right. And let's start checking some things. A24 and A42 have to add to 1. Well, A24 is L over L, L minus X over L, and A42 is X over L. And so L minus X plus X over L is L over L is 1. All right, and if you go through all of these, you're going to find out that these coefficients all add to 1. So let's start putting the final solution together. F1. F1 is what? F1 is L minus Y over L times, what's the other coefficient for 1? L minus X over L. Oh, that's ugly. Times FB. That's F1. What's F2? Well, our coefficients for F2 are Y over L and 1 minus X over L, FB. Okay, and you may want to put brackets around these just to make life look a little better. There we go. Do that down here. Okay. And F4, F3, pardon me, let's do these in order. F3, our coefficients for 3 are, we'll do Y first again, 1 minus Y over L, and then X over L, FB. And then our coefficients for 4, we're going to get to Y over L, X over L, FB. Okay, this is the solution we get to. All right, F1 is L minus Y over L onto L minus X over L, FB. F2, Y over L onto 1 minus X over L, FB. F3, 1 minus Y over L onto X over L, FB. And then F4, X over L onto Y over L, FB. Now, if you check all these solutions. This does satisfy all the equations above. It satisfies the torques equations. And if you look at the sum of all of these, if we add all of these up, they add to FB. And so the very first equation, FB is F1 plus F2, F3 plus F4, is satisfied. This describes a plane that's fixed on each end, well, a shape that's fixed on each end and variable across it. And let's consider what happens with this solution. I'm going to move it over a little bit so we can see the table. Okay, let's think about what this solution. Now, remember, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4. Let's think about this solution. And this is an important part of physics, thinking about the solution. If we move the blob all the way over here where x is 0, what happens to these equations? Well, if x goes to 0, F4 is 0 and F3 is 0. That means if I move the blob all the way over here, that blob is not putting any weight on these legs over here. That makes sense, right? And if I move the blob all the way over here to x equals L, then F1 is 0 and F2 is 0. So no weight from the blob on these legs because the blob's all the way over here. The same front to back. If I move the blob all the way to the front, there's no weight on the back legs. If I move the blob all the way to the back, there's no weight on the front legs. And so this gives you a sense of how this would work. Or gives you a sense that this is working. It physically makes sense. And remember, one other thing you have to do when you're doing this, what did we do for this? We said the table is massless, right? Because the table is evenly distributed all over. We know what it's going to do. We're going to do this problem as a superposition of the weight of the table plus the blob. And that means for all of these, all you have to do to get the final answer is add in the weight of the table over 4, because that is also there to be taken into account. Okay. Now, that's it for this problem. Again, this is I call this a magnificent problem, and had I just thrown it at you, it would be give up hope, all ye who enter here. And what you're after at the end of the day is these 4 equations down here. But I did want you to understand how we got there. I hope you understood. Ask questions if you want, and I'll talk to you later.